So I will be answering Nicole's question set three, the question that asked about sacred text and non-sacred text. Um, believing do they have the same impact or delivery? So I just want to differentiate or reiterate some of the points that Professor Tracy made within her lecture. So sacred texts go beyond their scope of existence of an individual reading them. Like they tell stories that are beyond their lifetime and more or less have nothing to do with what they've done, but kind of what they should do, maybe as a guidance. So they're very orienting, provides perspectives on the world, humanity, ethical behavior, guidance. Um, so that's kind of what happens with sacred texts. It's more like a kind of a storytelling theme. Profane or regular texts can be entertaining or informing, but don't necessarily change the way the reader participates in the world or doesn't ask the reader to see the world in a certain way or behave in a certain way or is associated with the community of followers. So it's kind of a little bit more independent and not as like ideal like it doesn't have this ideology behind it. It's just what it is. So there's religious and sociological perspectives associated with text. You can either think that it's a revelation or comes from a speech. So you can think that God Himself or whatever God you believe then with sacred text, spewed out this information for you to follow and inherit. Whereas sociological perspective associates an action or a voice with it to analyze why it's sacred. So they're a different way of describing what the text is and how it came to be. So I think that kind of changes the difference between them because you can look at a sacred text from a sociological perspective, with Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism. Um, I guess it just depends how you look at them, because one could argue that those are, regular texts, depending on what you believe or how you look at them. So, human condition really requires us to look towards sacred texts either way and attempt to interpret them because the human condition is so centered around religion and life itself and the afterlife and everything in between. So, in order to find those answers or for people to find comfort or reasoning, they look towards these texts and interpret them how they want so that they can apply it to their own existence. So I don't think that they have the same impact necessarily, um, but I think the delivery is up to the reader and the audience. But I believe that, if used in the right way for the right people and the right person, they could have similar impacts of informing someone or diversifying their vocabulary or thought process. So I think it's kind of up in the air with some stuff like that, but I do think that they both have, saying that there are the two differences, that they both have really important contributions to society and the way that we think.